Hello everybody, I'm here today to do my final wrap-up for the fiction finals of the Booktube prize. So this round I didn't do non-fiction, but I judged the fiction category. Out of the books that were in that category, I had read 4 previous to the list to be sent to me. If my memory of those books is not the best, please keep in mind that I read them a while ago. And I had to read 2 books for this final round. I finished the last one a couple of days ago, but I was traveling, so I didn't have the option to start recording this video, so I'm recording it now. I also wanted to say that this is only the list of books and my rankings. I don't know yet who won, and I will probably make a reaction video or some kind of impressions on it, and also I want to do a video talking about my experience with the prize. But yeah, without further ado, let's go into my rankings. I'm going to start by the book I put in the 6th place, and the book I put on the 1st place will be last. And I have to say that all these books were good, that's why they were in the finals. So this ranking doesn't mean that you should not read the books that I put at the bottom. It's just my personal preference on them. So in the 6th place I put A Single Thread by Tracy Chevalier. This book follows Violet, who is a woman that lives alone and has a job in the 1930s between the 2 world wars. So in that time there was a lot of these women that they call the surplus women, that because a lot of men had died in the Great War at that time, which is the First World War now. There were more women than men in the population, and so there were a lot of women that were single or widowed. And so in this book, Violet joins a embroidery club to do something with her life, and she connects with some of these surplus women, let's say. And yeah, it just follows her in that journey. And also it's in the 30s, so they have the consequences of the First World War, but they also are seeing slowly how the Nazis are rising, not only in Germany but also in the UK, because this is set in the UK. And it gives you a bit of the contrast between the 2 things. I thought the idea was quite good. I thought that the exposure of those women is not very common, and I like that. But the reason why it's in the 6th place is basically because the reading experience was not as interesting as the topic was. There was a lot of talk about embroidery itself, and a lot of I would say silly confrontations between these women, like everyday things. Oh, but she said, that I did that, but she said that I did that other thing, that kind of thing, which is not something I necessarily want to read about. And that, together with the embroidery, made it quite slow pace to go through for me, and the payoff at the end was not enough to justify all that effort to go through the book. So that's why I put it in 6th place, but that doesn't mean it's not a bad book. And I think that if you like embroidery and that kind of crafts, you might really like this. And again, I thought that the idea and the way it's presented in a very feminist light was really good. It's just the execution that was letting me down. 5th place I put The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Lefteri. I had read this previously in a previous round of the prize, and I think at that time it was my 3rd book. But actually, looking back on it, although I enjoyed the reading process because it's quite poetical and whimsical, and it's well written, and it's a nice book in that sense. Looking back at it, I feel like there were some aspects of the book that didn't settle well with me, and that sensation has grown since I read the book. So I think that especially compared to the other books in the list, this just didn't make the cut for me. So yeah, this follows a couple, an older couple from Syria that moves to the UK because of the war in Syria, and their journey. And the husband was a beekeeper in Aleppo, and the wife was an artist, and the trauma makes her stop. I think it was talking or seeing. I cannot remember right now, but she had some disability because of the trauma. There was nothing physical avoiding her to talk or see. But it was the trauma that made that physical thing happen, and this follows them as they go from Syria to the UK, and them trying to establish themselves in the UK and still be themselves in that new environment. And although I think that the topic was interesting, and I think that the writing was interesting as well because it tried to do something new, I did feel very emotionally manipulated. I didn't like the way that the author was trying too hard to make me feel certain way. If you're a good writer, you don't need to try that hard. You just the reader will just feel those emotions by themselves. You don't have to force them on them. So that keeps me out from putting it higher. And also I thought that the story didn't fit the language very well because, as I said, the language was quite whimsical, but the story was not. There was no whimsy feeling in the story itself. It was a very hard but also very common story. I mean, there are a lot of refugees that come from Syria, so it's not a unique thing, and it didn't feel like a unique thing. It felt, to me at least, it felt like an important story and a story that should be told, but nothing that is special to these characters. Many people have gone through that, and then the whimsical tries to make it special, but then it doesn't work for me. So yeah, although I enjoyed the reading experience when I was reading it, I think with time I can see the flaws better, and that's what has stayed with me, so that's why it's in the 5th place. And then in 4th place I put Lanny by Max Porter, and this is that was a tough one for me to place because for me this story is not the kind of story I enjoy. So in enjoyment level, it's probably the least enjoyable of all the books that I have read for this round, but I didn't judge it only on that because I think that this book is trying to do something more, and I can appreciate what it's trying to do. Is just not my kind of thing, so I decided to judge it a bit, taking a bit more distance from it, and that's why it's in 4th place. So this follows Lanny, who is a small child that it's a bit special and very self-aware, and he goes missing one day, and when he goes missing we see which effect that has in the whole village where he lives, and especially in Papa Toothworth, which is some kind of spirit that liked to observe the town, and also of this old man that was teaching Lanny art. And yeah, those are the 3 main characters, and then the parents of Lanny, of course. And we follow the effect of Lanny's disappearance and in all these characters, and it's told in a very whimsical but also very strange way. Like there are times in which words have shapes and are not lines of text. It just goes up and down and up and down, and it's all mixed together, especially in the Papa Toothworth sections, because he's supposed to listen to everything that the people in the town are thinking. Then we have all those thoughts like weirdly placed in the page. So it is very experimental, and it is very crafty, and I think that Max Porter succeeds at what he's trying to do. It's just what he's trying to do is not very interesting for me. So I understand why some people absolutely love this book, but for me it just didn't work really well. I have heard some criticism that Lanny feels way older than it actually he is, and I agree with that. But other than that, I think that in general the book does something very, very interesting. It's just not my kind of interesting. And I think that the topic and the plot is not the point of the book, but it's not something that I'm interested in. So yeah, I think that that's why this is the book that I enjoyed the least, but I can appreciate what the book was trying to do, and therefore it's in my 4th place. Because I think that craft has a value that the other books don't have, and also, like, even though I didn't completely enjoy, I find it more memorable. Like, I can remember more things about that than the Beekeeper of Aleppo, or probably I will be able to remember about a single thread a couple of months from now. So that's why I decided to put it in 4th place. Then the 3rd book is in my list is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I know this is many people's favorite. I read it last year. I think it was last year. And again, it's a bit like Lanny. I can appreciate what she was doing, and I found it, the writing style I found quite easy to get through. There is no punctuation and quotation marks and all those kind of things, but the words flow in a way that makes it super easy to read, and I think that was very well done. I really liked Bernardine Evaristo's style in that sense. What bothered me about this book is the characters. Basically it follows 12 characters, mostly women, mostly black, in Britain. And it explores a lot of the race issues that we have in our society today. And it tackles it from many points of view and many different angles. So that's all very well, and that sounds amazing. And that's something I really am interested to read, and I really want to read. But I think for me, there were just too many annoying characters there. And there were also some characters that felt very two-dimensional, like they were there just so that Bernardine Evaristo could make a point about them, rather than feeling like full-fledged people. I mean, there were some characters, especially Jazz. If you have read the book, Jazz is the most annoying character, and I could not wait for her section to finish. And I don't know if there are people that are like she is. I guess there are, but I haven't met any. And she's not trying to make us understand why she is the way she is. It's just like, yeah, that's one way how people is. And there were several other characters that were just very obnoxious, and I didn't enjoy reading about them. I can appreciate why people like it so much, and I think the topics that she touches on are really, really important and are really current, and they should be discussed more. So I'm glad that this book exists, but some of the characters were just so annoying. I could not go past that. I would not say that I do not gel with any unlikable characters. I think I prefer my characters not to be likable but to be relatable, and I did not find many of these characters relatable. Maybe I found 3 or 4 relatable out of 12. So yeah, and then there was nothing that explained to me why these people were that way. So I felt a bit left out of the story and these characters' lives, because I could not understand them, I could not relate to them, I could not like them, and it just it just took me out of what she was trying to do. But it was still an enjoyable read, a very quick read for how big that book is. And yeah, I again see its merits as well as I see its flaws. So that's why it's on my 3rd place. And then the 2 top spots was really hard for me to decide what to put where. I was debating about this for quite a few days, but I decided at the end that my second choice was Woman Talking by Miriam Toews. And this book follows a community of Mennonites in Canada, in which the men have started drugging and raping all the women in the community. So when the men are in the city, the women hold a meeting to decide what they are going to do, if they are going to stay with the men and they are going to leave. I felt like it had a real punch. So it's a very short book. It's less than 200 pages, I think, or about 200 pages. And it's all about that one discussion, so it all happens in a very small amount of time. But it really reflects, I think, the inner debates of these women. Because, of course, you would say in that situation you should leave, but at the same time, those men are their husbands, they are their brothers, they are their sons. So it is hard for them to leave all of them out, and then also they had to decide on who comes with them, how old does a child have to be to not be taken with them, and all kinds of debates. And it's very basically moral and a philosophical discussion of what your priorities are as a community and as an individual in a situation like that. And I really liked that discussion. I thought that it brought some really interesting points up, and I was flooded by it at the end of the book. So I really, really like this book, and if you have not picked it up, I really think you should. It's amazing. But yeah, it's not my number one. I don't know. Probably depends on the day. Like any other day, I would have put it in the number one. But my number one for this time, what I submitted, was 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world by Elif Shafak. This book follows 6 friends. And basically it focuses around Laila, which is a woman that used to be a prostitute in Istanbul, and her friends. So when Laila dies, which is how the book starts, the theory is that you have 10 minutes and 38 seconds until her brain stops working. And so we go from the moment her heart stops until her brain stops. She has flashbacks of what happened in her life, and it's not exactly chronological, but you see parts of her childhood and you see parts of what happened before she died, and the development of her friendship with every single of this group of friends, in which it focuses. And that's basically the first part of the book. And then the second part of the book, she dies, she's done, and we focus on the body and what's going to happen with the body, because according to the rules in Turkey, she cannot be given to a stranger. She has to be given to her family, and if her family refuses to take her body and bury it properly, then it will go into this cemetery of the companionless, in which she would not have a ceremony or any kind of rite. And her friends don't want that to happen, but they don't have control over that because they are not family, they're friends. And her family doesn't want to take responsibility because she was a prostitute and they are ashamed of it. And these people live in the fringes of society, so they normally their families don't want to take care of them once they die. And because they know that they are in the fringes of society, so in this group of friends, one of them is a trans, another prostitutes, there are people with disability, and these people know that that's going to be their destiny as well, and they are not okay with it, so they decide to do something about it. And so the second part follows them and explains the relationship of each of them to Lila and how important she was to them and how much they grieve for her and for themselves as people that are not accepted in that society. And then the last part, which is really short, is about her soul and how all of them together become this family in a way that even if it's not recognized by the government, the fact that they are not the standard doesn't have to make them unhappy and doesn't have to make them lonely. And I thought that was a beautiful metaphor, and there are so many things to explore in that book, and how we treat people in our society just because the choices they were forced to make, or the things they were born with, or the choices they decided to make because they felt it was the right thing for them, and how we don't allow people to be themselves sometimes just because it doesn't fit in our idea of how our society should look like. And I just found that beautiful. I have heard many people complain that the two parts don't go well together and they have different tones, and I understand that. But for me, it worked. It does change the pace and the tone, but with the metaphor of the body and the soul and the brain, it just all worked together for me to make it one thing that it's not necessarily connected in a way we are used to, but it's connected in a way that makes sense. And yeah, the language is also beautiful, which I think gave it the extra notch to go over woman talking. I think that the writing in woman talking is probably more plain than in 10 minutes 38 seconds. So I think that the writing together with the story and all the themes that it touches upon, I think it really made this one stand out for me. Yeah, so that's my ranking. Let me know if you agree with it or disagree, and if you have read these books or not. I honestly will not be mad if any of my top 3 win at the end. I think they are all worthy of winning, although I enjoy some more than others. But we will see what happens. I'm quite excited to see what happens. I have also almost finished all the finalists for the non-fiction round. Even though I'm not judging it, I just wanted to read them as well to see what I would want to win, and I have my favorites on that as well. I think I'm currently in the middle of Solitary by Albert Woodfox, and I know that I don't want that to be the one to win. I think that for me, In the Dream House, it's probably my favorite of the non-fiction round, and Say Nothing I think will be also a very good winner, and I think it's one that maybe more people can agree on. But also Know My Name and No Visible Bruises could be winners that I will be okay with. But we will see what happens. I think there's still a few days. I think it's announced on Saturday, and today it's Tuesday. so we have a few days left. But I will be looking forward to what happens, and I will let you know my thoughts on the winners and on the Booktube prize in general and being a judge on it. So yeah, that was all for me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, bye!